Nancy in a talkback session with you. And I think this is a horror story. This is such a terrible story. And it's so, and we've heard so many horror stories about the Shoah, about people being killed, and yet it's horrible all over again. And yet it's also a beautiful story, I think. And what amazes me is how, also the symbolism, of course, and the fact that the woman, is she ever named? The nameless woman is completely ignorant of what's going on, which is the rationale and rationalization that many people who were German, either in the Nazi Party or working for the Nazi regime, claimed. So I think the first question to ask is that even plausible? Is it plausible that someone could be so clueless, so ignorant, so close to what was going on, and be completely unaware of what it was? To receive all these gifts via her husband from the Jews, and to not know how they got, is that possible? And is this artistic license that Emil Liebrecht used just a symbol for, let's say, Germany, but it's all over France and Holland and every place where people said they didn't know. Is it plausible? Naomi, you had a question, you had a response.
You're familiar with saran-wrapped chicken parts in the supermarket?
I am familiar with saran-wrapped chicken parts in the supermarket. That sounds like an English sentence you have to learn how to say it, yeah.
It's human, the human condition to deny, suppress reality that interferes with our pleasure.
So you're saying that the ignorance was a mask that enabled her to live the way she was living, and not a true ignorance.
What was the mask?
Her ignorance. She was play acting, not understanding.
I wouldn't call it play acting.
What
I
would you
would
call
call it some natural kind of self-protection of the unreflective.
What's the connection to the chicken? That we don't know where that chicken lived, how the chicken was slaughtered.
It's meat, it's not a chicken.
Do you understand now?
Yeah, that there's a disconnect, is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Okay, that was Steve.
Well, in some ways, the playwright is not a German explaining herself, the German people. Playwright is a Jew who's trying to understand the Germans. And the playwright is a little like the strawberry girl that like wanders in and watching the Germans and trying to figure out, who are these people? How could they have done this? Rather than, some, confession of a German or a nonfiction version. So I think it's more about how Jews can think about, who are these people that did this and how could they, rather than, it's like a Jewish fantasy rather than a German explanation.
Do you think that the German child, did she have a name? She was just the Jew, the strawberry girl.
Just the strawberry.
It's interesting who has names and who doesn't in this play. Do you think that she was wondering, as you say, Savion Liebrecht is wondering about the Germans? Was she in a state of questioning and confusion?
Yeah, in some ways she's plucking strawberries, like the plague is out of the Holocaust, just like the strawberry girl grew strawberries out of the Holocaust.
Okay. Savion? Oh, Savion, I'm sorry, Sabina.
Actually, Savion told me that she was Sabine, right?
Yeah,
The parents turned it in.
her first name.
She told me a story once, which was when her family came to Israel, they tried to reject everything German, and they named her Savion, which is also a name of a place, etc. I don't remember what her birth name was. And then she married someone named Liebrecht.
Her parents are not from German background.
But it doesn't matter, but they
But
would.
Liebrecht is nice, the combination.
She
of
didn't
Latin
like
and
it.
right.
But anyhow, that's not what you wanted
Yeah, I
to
was
say.
thinking, Nancy really gave the expressions, I thought you know, especially for the girl, you put so much into that very brief moment of that. She was completely confounded that this woman seemed to not understand, right? I mean, what were you thinking when you were?
With the girl?
Yeah.
With the little girl?
What was, in your interpretation, what went through her head?
I just, she's so appalled at the condition of this child, certainly doesn't want her son to see this.
Right.
And,
But I mean, but you
She wants to
gave
know about the
voice to the
child.
girl itself. When you played the girl for a moment,
Mhm.
briefly, that expression on your face spoke so much, I thought. And I was wondering what you put into that in your own reading.
I was actually just remembering my nieces when they're about 3 or 4. When comprehension is, and also trying to put into it the fact that she's frostbitten, doing her small task, and no one speaks to her. No one has ever given her a pair of socks or told her to clean her dress. They just order her around. So really, the confusion of I don't know what to do with this.
And the terror.
Mhm.
This woman had absolute power.
Yeah.
Absolute power.
And yet it seems indicated in the script that Wolfgang not only knows about this child, but spared her and allowed her to work in the periphery, unharmed, unhelped, but unharmed.
And what would be the motivation for that?
And he helped her to pick the strawberries. The father had to pick the strawberries.
The father?
No, the father is gone.
Not her father.
Right. The Wolfgang,
The
The
woman's
husband.
father, the woman's husband
Well,
had red under his fingernails.
No, that was
The
Ludwig.
child.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Just keep on going, you don't need to be corrected, I'm sorry.
I don't know, because I can only go with the text, because as an actor, to honor the playwright, you have to hold on to your character's point of view. So I couldn't allow any doubt into her, because there's no doubt in the script. It's my feeling that she wrote it this way in order to be provocative and stir up conversation as to whether anybody could be this clueless. But it is how she wrote it, and there's no other indications on the page, so it would be wrong of me to sneak anything else in there. But in my own interpretation as to why Wolfgang would allow that child is he, and she's got it in the writing here, but I didn't know that she would survive. I didn't know she'd make it. They said there was a girl out there with strawberries, and I think he having a moment of compassion. Moment.
I don't want to disillusion you, but I think
I think that's why he drinks.
it could be. People drink without
Yes.
that reason.
As I said, I'm making that up as I go.
How about this as a hypothesis? Wolfgang keeps on bringing his wife nice things.
Walter.
It's Walter.
Walter's
Yeah,
my
Walter.
husband. Wolfgang is my friend at the camp.
Yeah, so Wolfgang.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, well, Wolfgang doesn't have anyone to
Yeah.
love, to
Right.
take care of.
Right.
But he sees, this is hypothesis, he sees his friend Walter,
Mhm.
they are kind of friends,
Mhm.
bringing nice things to his wife. So he's also bringing something nice to the wife by allowing the girl to bring strawberries to her. So he's participating in this harmless gift. If he would start bringing her jewels and dresses and all those things that her husband does, that would be inappropriate, right? It's just another way of thinking about it. There was a hand, I will get to you. Yes, sir, I'm sorry.
Addressing the whole question of how much they are denying what's happening, I was very struck by the fact that the presence of the strawberry girl gets insinuated into their subconscious, in their dream. So I would like to think that Savion Liebrecht is trying to tell us that at some level they do know what's happening. At some point, in some way, they are aware that it's happening, but they're rejecting it.
Tell me something. Let's play with that a little bit more. What about the nature of the dream? Did the nature of the dream indicate any knowledge or guilt?
No.
How? What were the red blood under the fingernails?
Yeah,
Was that the guilt of the little boy?
Well, it's actually a very distressing image, and it's distressing to the person who's having the dream. So there's an element of being aware of the suffering that's happening on the other side, and dreams are the way dreams are. These are symbols.
So that could be an indication that she's not clueless. But then she must be acting all the time. Because there's nothing in her conscious life, in her ego, in her...
I also wonder if she hadn't been sent away by Walter,
Back to Deutschland?
she indicates that, you know, I dreamt again about the strawberry girl, and this time I thought of her with affection. I was glad I gave her the socks. Tomorrow I'm going to give her some of Ludwig's sweaters, and I'm going to give her a dress for her mother. And so I also feel, because it's there, because it's in the text, that there's her mothering instincts
Exactly.
just cannot help it. This child is in need. She's really ticking me off at the top because she's so distressing to look at. But I'm glad I helped her. Her strawberries brought joy to my son, and I'm going to help her some more.
So it's complex, yes.
Yeah. Going back to the symbology in the dream, I think that the image of what she first perceives to be blood under her son's fingernails is a particularly striking one. And I think that for me, what it sort of points to is the way that the Germans in the story, are all concerned with how perpetrating that kind of violence onto other people is sullying them. Not
Exactly.
whether that's something that they shouldn't do because it's a horror onto other people, but the ways in which they're damaging themselves. And I think that's paralleled by what I think is a very strange line that keeps shifting in the story of what they are and are not willing to come into close quarters with. So they will drink the cognac, but I can't quite make sense of what the reasoning is for not, when Wolfgang says don't wear clothes that your husband brings home. I don't know if he's saying because Jews wore them and so they're filthy, or if he's saying because some human once wore those clothes and they belong to someone, and you are stepping into a dead person's clothes, and that is a role that you don't want to take on. Those are different things.
And isn't that the skill of a good writer? To leave you wondering which one of those two. There's a line early on, very early on, where it says, I'm glad Ludwig isn't here.
Yes.
Do you remember the line?
My first thought upon seeing her was that I was relief that I hadn't brought my son along. I didn't want him to see that there were children like that.
Exactly, and that's exactly what you said. That is, what we are doing to the Jews makes us feel disgusting just because of what's happening to them. So even their, how should I say this, even their misery is not understood as their misery. It's understood as another crime, as another evil thing that Jews are doing. Yes, Steve?
Yeah, I think I mean, in the early part of the performance, I got the feeling that the woman really was an anti-Semite. You know, like, she's looking at this.
The clueless woman?
The clueless woman, yeah. I mean, she might have been clueless about, you know, the extermination, but she really did not have any affection for Jews. She looked at, you know, this Jew as like some, you know, something dirty and something inferior. And then I think the dream is very important because it kind of creates an identity between her son and the girl. And there is like a, you know, like you're saying, at the end she's thinking about how she can give more to her. So it's, but she did start out as, you know, you're saying that the Jews are like rats, and, you know, something filthy, and I'm going to stay away from them.
You made me understand something else. The girl has her hand in dirt. She is dirty. So it's again one of these symbols that you don't know who you're going to place it exactly. And then you learn what the dirt is and why the strawberries are so large. And that she's the woman is ingesting Jews.
I know, isn't that sort of the joke? Almost sort of.
It's the punchline. I don't know if it's a joke.
Well, it is. Okay, the punchline, it's the end to the joke. It's like, you know, it's the girl's punchline. Look where I grew the strawberries, you know, and you ate them.
Do you think the girl knows?
No, I mean, not really. It's the playwright who's doing it.
Yeah, I don't think the child
Not
knows.
the child, but it's through the playwright, through
Something on
his
Liebrecht.
track.
Mhm.
You know,
We know.
they ate the strawberries, and I actually
That's even
believe-
worse than wearing a dress. Ken.
And I really believe that this woman was so clueless. I really do, and I think that there were people, it's hard to believe that somebody could be living in a house next to the crematorium, and she knew that there was smoke, and she knew there was dirt. But I believe it's possible. I do.
You know what would support your point of view? The Red Cross coming to Theresienstadt.
Yeah.
They came to Theresienstadt, as everyone knows, a whole Hatzaga, a whole performance was put on for them, and they believed it, and they reported it. The fact of calling this place, the concentration camp in the crematorium, a factory is also brilliant. Because all you have to do with something that you're guilty of is call it something else. And then it's not that anymore. Yes.
It's not an isolated case. Majdanek was near Lublin, and people could smell from the chimneys the smell of burnt flesh.
But it was called something
And
else.
they denied it because they wanted to continue with their daily routines. And they knew it, and when the Americans liberated one of the camps, I don't know which one, they brought in Germans from surrounding towns to show them and to pick up the dead bodies. And they said, oh, we didn't know.
But we're all saying they knew and they didn't know. They were defending themselves against knowing. So they had to know in order to have to defend themselves. You and then you.
I think they knew and they wanted, and they made their own peace with knowing. I think of the women living in the South, in their big mansions, surrounded by black help, and kids, you know, cleaning their homes. They knew they were slaves, they knew how they were being treated, and they made their peace with it. I don't think they were, would you call them racist? I mean, this is what they were. Black people were by law of nature inferior people, and they figured out a way of coexisting with it because it allowed them to live the comfortable life they want.
I do not want to in any way diminish what you said. I respect everything you said, but there is a difference between having a crematorium that's bringing in Jews.
I know. But it's an
The
inconvenient
slaves
truth.
were not killed.
I know, but I'm saying this, the tension with living in an
The
inconvenient
intention was
truth.
not to bring blacks from Africa to kill them here. That was not the idea.
I understand, but there's still a moral question.
Of course.
One thing that I'd like to add to what you said about, and it's a point that has come up in other talkbacks, is you said the women living in the big mansions. And that's not an excuse, it's simply an observation from an actor as to who this woman is that she's also powerless. You know, this is a time when women were at the mercy of their marriage